My name is Jason. I am 34 years old and I sell industrial equipment for a living. I am the guy who keeps warehouses moving, dealing with conveyor belts, packaging lines, and barcode scanners, which sounds boring until a factory is losing thousands of dollars an hour and suddenly I'm everyone's best friend. I had worked my way up over 8 years from inside sales to regional manager, and I was proud of that because nobody handed it to me. My wife at the time was Emily, 31, a part-time yoga instructor who sometimes did freelance graphic design when she felt like it. We had been together 6 years and married for 3, and we met at a brewery on trivia night when her team absolutely crushed mine on early 2000s pop culture. Before we got married, we signed a pretty solid prenuptial agreement because I had watched too many coworkers get cleaned out in divorce court, and she said she understood wanting to protect what each of us brought into the marriage. Emily drove a 2019 sedan that had been giving her transmission trouble for months. Not enough to die on the side of the road, but enough that every morning could turn into a call or ride share or pray situation. She started hinting about wanting a newer, more reliable car, and eventually she landed on this certified pre-owned Subaru Outback she found online for about $28,000. We did not have that kind of cash lying around because we had been hammering away at my student loans and our mortgage, but I kept thinking she deserved something dependable after putting up with my focus on debt. So I volunteered for every bit of overtime I could get. Weekends, late nights, emergency calls, everything. And I started piling that extra money into what I called the car fund in my head. Emily acted appreciative, said she understood the crazy hours, and her best friend, Lauren, a divorced woman who worked for a healthcare startup, came over most nights to keep her company with wine, shows, and whatever people do when they are not crawling around under broken machines. One Tuesday, I had a call about an emergency at a plant, but it turned out to be a dirty sensor that took me 20 minutes to clean instead of 3 hours. I headed home thinking I might actually sit on my own couch before 10 at night, and I walked in around 7:30 and heard Emily and Lauren talking in the kitchen. At first, it sounded normal, just the low hum of two people chatting, so I figured I would grab a beer and then surprise them. Then I heard Lauren say something about timing, and Emily answering that she had to be careful about when she made her move. At first, I thought maybe they were planning a surprise party or a work thing, but then Emily said that with me working so many overtime hours, it might be the perfect time to see what else is out there. Lauren told her she had been talking about this for weeks, that she deserved to explore her options and find something better suited to her, and she even mentioned she had connections who could make the logistics easier. The way they were talking made my stomach twist, and then Emily said she was worried about the financial side of it because she did not want to lose her security if things did not work out. Lauren told her she could always come back to me, that I was too nice and would probably take her back after her little adventure, treating our marriage like a spare tire in the trunk. I had watched enough cheating spouse stories on those drama channels to know I was not listening to birthday planning. I was listening to my wife planning to cheat on me while I was out busting my back to buy her a car. I set my beer down without them noticing and walked right back out to my truck. Sat there like a statue for 10 minutes, trying to get my breathing under control. After that, I drove around for about an hour. No radio, no plan, just trying to process the idea that my wife was treating our marriage as a safety net while she shopped for something better. When I finally came home, I walked in like nothing had happened, and Emily asked how my day was, and I said fine, and we went to bed like any other night, except I was staring at the ceiling thinking about lawyers. The next few days, she started dropping little philosophical hints about needing space, wondering if people could love each other but still try other connections, and asking if I believed in taking breaks to figure yourself out. On Friday night, she finally sat me down and said she felt like we had married young, even though we were 28 and 31, and she needed time and space to be sure this life was what she really wanted. She said she loved me but was not sure she was still in love with me, and she floated the idea of staying with Lauren for a few weeks to get clarity. I asked her straight if there was someone else, and she looked me in the eye and said there was not, that she would never do that to me. She just needed to be alone. She said Lauren had offered to let her crash there, maybe even take a little trip to clear her head. And I told her if that was what she needed, I would keep working and saving and give her all the space she wanted. What I did not say was that I had already called the divorce attorney that Thursday morning. On Sunday, Emily moved some clothes, her laptop, a stack of books, and a few personal things to Lauren's place, hugged me at the door, and said she hoped this was not the end, just a pause. Monday morning, I went to the bank and moved our savings, including the $12,000 I had scraped together for the car, into a new account in my name only, which the prenuptial agreement allowed. I left the joint checking account alone, but rerouted my direct deposit to my personal account because I was done funding her exploration. By Tuesday, the divorce papers were drafted, simple and clean, irreconcilable differences, each keeping what we brought in, splitting the house proceeds if we sold, no alimony. On Wednesday, she texted asking if I had thought about us and if I was really ready to talk about our future, and I told her to come by Thursday evening. She showed up Thursday night with takeout and a speech ready about how her time away made her realize how much she missed our life, how she had been overthinking, and how stepping back showed her what she had. I let her talk, then slid the divorce papers across the table. Her face went from hopeful to confused to furious in seconds, and she asked if it was some kind of joke and why I was being dramatic over her needing a little space. I told her I knew exactly what kind of space she had been looking for, and that I was giving her permanent space. When she demanded to know what I meant, I explained I had overheard her and Lauren plotting the week before. She tried to claim I misunderstood, that she had not actually done anything, and I said that was great because it meant the divorce would be simpler, with no arguments about adultery, just two people who wanted different lives. Then she shifted to money, asking if she could access the savings to get her own place and maybe buy that reliable car since she would be starting over. I told her the savings account was closed and that the overtime money I earned for 2 months was now in an account she could not touch because I had decided not to bankroll her self-discovery tour. She called me controlling and accused me of financial abuse, and I reminded her that under the prenuptial agreement, my income was mine and she had never contributed to that car fund. She left around 9 at night, furious and empty-handed, and later I sat there wondering if I should have confronted her earlier and given her a chance to back out. But the more I thought about it, the more I believed I had heard exactly what I heard. I was not trying to ruin her life. She had a job, a place to stay with Lauren, and enough skills to figure out transportation and housing, and I just did not see why I needed to finance someone who saw our marriage as a trial subscription. Over the next few days, I shared my story on an online forum just to get outside opinions, and people were almost unanimous that I was not the one in the wrong, and that Emily's focus on money instead of the relationship said everything. A lot of them pointed out that an innocent spouse would be devastated by divorce papers, not immediately asking about access to accounts, and that comment sat in my mind like a stone. Some people suggested collecting more evidence, but I had zero interest in turning into an amateur detective. Others predicted she would come back with big emotional gestures when she realized I was serious about the divorce. They were right. Friday morning, she showed up at 6:30, pounding on the door. She wanted to really talk, admitting she had thought about other options, but claiming the divorce papers had opened her eyes and that she was just scared of commitment, that I was the best thing that had ever happened to her. I appreciated the honesty, but that ship had sailed, and if she had wanted to work on the marriage, she could have done it before planning an affair, with Lauren's help. That was when she tried to shift the blame onto Lauren, saying Lauren had been filling her head with ideas about settling and pushing her to see what else was out there. I asked if there was a specific man or just a general shopping trip, and after a long silence, she admitted there was a guy from her yoga studio who had been flirting with her for months. They had not slept together yet, but she had been thinking about it, and Lauren had been cheering her on, saying life was short and she shouldn't wonder what if forever. That admission confirmed that this was not some vague phase. She had a target and a plan. She cried and asked for counseling and a second chance, talking about not throwing away 6 years. But all I could think about was how she did not seem sorry for what she planned, only sorry that it backfired. Not long after that, she tried another angle by suddenly calling me to say she might be pregnant, claiming she had taken a test and it was positive, and that we owed it to our child to work things out. The timing did not make sense. We had not been intimate in weeks, and her story about symptoms did not match the calendar. I told her we would definitely need a doctor to confirm before making any life-changing decisions, and that if she really was pregnant, we would arrange co-parenting through the lawyers. Her face fell because she expected me to immediately cancel the divorce and jump back in. And a couple of days later, she finally admitted she had lied about being pregnant to try to scare me into staying. Around that same time, the guy from the yoga studio actually called me, explained that Emily had told him we were separated and divorcing, and that he backed off once he learned we were still married, which showed me just how far she had been laying groundwork behind my back. When the pregnancy lie collapsed, Emily showed up on my porch one evening looking wrecked and said she could not keep living with the lies. She admitted the pregnancy was fake, that she and yoga guy had been texting for months and meeting for coffee, and that she had planned to sleep with him during the trial separation while I worked overtime. She said the divorce papers had been a wake-up call, and that she realized she had blown up her life chasing a fantasy and listening to Lauren's bitter advice. She begged for forgiveness and asked if we could start over from scratch. Seeing her that broken was not easy, but I reminded myself this was not a one-time mistake. It was months of planning and deception, and the only reason she was confessing now was because her plan fell apart and the consequences became real. I told her I was done being the backup plan, that she would have to figure out where to live and how to rebuild alone, and she left that night without looking back. Things did not calm down right away. She tried filing motions through her lawyer, claiming I was hiding assets and asking for temporary support, but our prenuptial agreement and my financial records shot that down. She even contacted my company's human resources department to imply I might be unstable because of a messy divorce, which forced me into an awkward meeting where my boss had to confirm my work was fine. Lauren got involved too, pretending to be some kind of social worker and asking my elderly neighbor questions about whether I was controlling or aggressive, which my neighbor, thankfully, found suspicious enough to tell me about. At one point, Emily used her old key to let herself into my house when I was gone, left the key on the counter, and walked out, which pushed me to change the locks and install cameras after talking to the police. Eventually, a judge denied her request for support, the prenuptial agreement held, and despite her lawyer dragging things out with extensions, it became clear the outcome was not going to change. She would not get my overtime savings, she would not get the house, and she would not get me back. In the end, justice showed up in a quiet, practical way. Emily did not go to jail or anything dramatic, but the same choices she made, planning an affair while expecting me to fund it, lying about pregnancy, stirring up trouble at my work and in my neighborhood, came back around on her. She lost the comfortable life she had taken for granted, the financial safety net she assumed would always be there, and the husband she thought would wait forever while she explored, and I walked away with my dignity, my hard-earned savings, and a clean break. Looking back, the biggest thing I learned is that quiet, consistent actions tell you more about a person than any speech about feelings. If your spouse is talking about space at the same time you are killing yourself with overtime for their dreams, pay attention to those mixed signals. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is simple. Trust what you see and hear, protect yourself legally and financially, do not let guilt or manipulation talk you out of common sense, and remember that love does not require you to be someone else's backup plan, because eventually, like it or not, karma has a way of evening things out.